Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. The Digiruption Indaba is a key annual partner and customer conference providing a place for industry experts to connect and share insights. This year's event was designed to help organizations harness the power of information to become intelligent and connected enterprises. That's an interesting one. The event will rather focused on three key areas: cloud customer experience and security. It also explored how people are drivers behind everything thriving businesses can do, and examine how machines and learning and artificial intelligence can enhance human work for a successful future. That's quite a mouthful, I know, but we're joined now by Julie Tregurtha, who is the Regional Vice President for Africa at OpenText Africa. Julie, thank you so much for coming through. It's one of those conversations you can't complete in one interview, but let's make our effort. Let's start off by talking about OpenText. Who is OpenText?
OpenText is a global leader in enterprise information management. It's a Canadian-based company but operates globally around the world, and we have a local office in South Africa based in Johannesburg, and from this we're basically supporting enterprises across Africa with the management of their information.
You know, in the service side, people will say we're offering support to the client, but what actual value do you add to your client?
So, Desiree, there is obviously so much happening in the world today around technology advancement, the digital economy, Industry 4.0. These are all buzzwords that are impacting and affecting companies and affecting the people in companies every single day. And it's impacting every industry, it's impacting every facet of the business. What you can see through this is that there is just an enormous growing amount of information that's getting generated every day by people in their communications, in their transactions, by machines, you know, just continually driving and creating information. And organizations have a responsibility to not only ingest and digitize this information, but also to manage it, to store it, to be able to search it, to meet with regulatory compliance related to the information they're storing. And it is a nightmare and a headache when information is lying all over their organization in physical pieces of paper, or on laptops, or on people's smartphones.
People don't know how to use this information.
And therefore they're not getting any insight from that information. So that is essentially our mandate and our vision, is to help organizations make sense of and manage this plethora of information, and also to connect it into their core business processes.
So you organized this event, Digiruption Indaba. What's it all about?
So it's an annual event that we host in South Africa. We believe that our responsibility as an IT provider globally is to also bring key trends, discuss them in the market locally, and then talk to our customers about the challenges that they're facing and see how and where we can assist them, and also create a network opportunity for different organizations in a similar industry. We've got an ecosystem of partners who also all add value around our technology for customers, and it's really about bringing all of this together. I think in the context of South Africa today, we hear things like Industry 4.0. We learn about the impact that robots and machines are having in various parts of the world, and what impact that could potentially have on us in South Africa. There's a recent statistic I've read that says 600 million robots will be entering the workplace in the next 5 to 7 years. And that is a really staggering, threatening.
Not only is it staggering,
statement.
You also sit there and you think, you were talking about impact earlier, and one of the big stories during the week here in South Africa was how Standard Bank was going to be closing down some of its branches. And because so much of your banking activities are now digitized, they're now online. As human beings, how can we interact with this phenomena that seems to be, as you say, threatening? Should we be worried, or should we find a way to work with technology and the digitization of everything around our lives?
So I think this is exactly the concern. What do we need to be doing to prepare ourselves for this movement. You're absolutely right. What's happened with Standard Bank this week is testimony to the way the world is changing. How many times do you go into a physical branch anymore? Most of the banking
Hardly
requirements we can do from a mobile application. And the same happens in all the other industries. If you look at digital education, I think we're moving very quickly to a position where we possibly don't need teachers in classrooms.
Every sector is affected.
Healthcare,
food
they
production.
Say in 5 years' time, you may not need a family GP because you can log onto an application, and you can probably
tell
get
you what your heart rate is and
a better
what you need.
diagnosis of your situation than what a human can give you today. At the core, we still need to remember we the humans. And I believe we control or we invite the machines into our lives to replace either menial tasks or to take over things which we know the machine can do better than we can do today. And what this does is it then forces us to be more creative. It frees us up to tap into our brain power and really, use our talents that we've been given.
That's a really higher level way of looking at it. But when you're talking to people who are losing jobs, it could mean the opposite.
So I agree, and I think that's why there's a responsibility from a government perspective, in our education systems and corporates to make sure that we are helping to transition the skill sets that people have in order to prepare for the new world.
We were saying in our introduction that some of the emphasis was on the cloud, customer experience and security. The issue about the cloud, all of us interact with it every day. Anybody who has a phone deals with the cloud on a daily basis, but we don't really understand what it's all about. What is the cloud?
So Desiree, the way I like to view it is, in previous eras, we like to see a machine sitting there in the corner, whether it was our home PC or whether it was, in our office environment. We wanted to see the machine, we wanted to hear it whirring and buzzing, and we knew that it was operating. Today, you don't need that. You really don't need to have that computing power and that physical box sitting in front of you. You have an enormous amount of computing power available to you in the cloud, and that means that you have access to services and computing that you could never have before.
But there's competing conversations about where the storage actually is. Some people say it's in India. Where is the cloud?
It can be anywhere. It can be anywhere. It can be here in South Africa. We have a lot of our own data center providers and some of the hyperscalers who actually have set up the data centers in South Africa, if that's a requirement for companies.
Is it regulated? Who regulates it?
Well, there's a lot of checks and balances and vetting and security that goes into all of that. That really should not be a concern. I think historically people had concerns around bandwidth, which I think now we really have solved that problem, and you have a very low latency issue if you're accessing information sitting anywhere in the world. And the other issue was data sovereignty, which is this regulatory issue that says data must reside in our country.
All countries are challenged with that right now.
But we are starting to break through that. And even highly regulated environments like financial services and the government bodies themselves are starting to open up and be able to find different ways of being able to deal with that.
I was talking about a big story this week being Standard Bank in terms of job losses. But another story is the announcement by Facebook that it will no longer be supporting Huawei devices in terms of downloading of social media apps. What kind of conversations were held at the Digiruption Indaba about this Huawei story?
So obviously that is very topical at the moment, based on England and what they're trying to do, letting them in, and the pressure that there is generally around Huawei. I think the key issue here is really about security. And that is ultimately the threat that everybody's concerned about. Security is a major challenge today, and in fact we say it should be almost priority number one.
Is the concern real, or is it just politics?
No, it is real. There is definitely a real threat of security issues, not necessarily with Huawei, but generally. The hackers are just getting smarter and smarter, and the ability for hackers to get access into a network, be there and lurk there for sometimes up to a month or 3 before anyone really knows that they're even there. And then obviously the ability for them to breach data, and access information that they shouldn't have. This is exactly the point around why the security topic should be a priority for CEOs today. And they need to be looking at how they are securing their networks and their endpoints. And the endpoint is not necessarily just a laptop, but it could be a mobile device, a tablet. It can be, any appliance today has got intelligence. And that's why it's a broad-based strategic view of security that companies need to take.
The conversations that were being held at Digiruption, do they only apply to big corporates, or can small businesses also join in and engage in this conversation about how to secure their online interaction with their clients?
So it is definitely across the board. And I do think even smaller businesses need to look at what they're doing around securing their information, around how to adopt and embrace digital technology, and how to manage the information in their business. So these topics affect all organizations, irrespective of the size. And at OpenText, we can find various ways through either directly or through our partners to be able to address any size organization with our services.
What are the cost factors?
So there are different costing models. There are obviously access to the technology has a cost associated to it. But I think the return on investment is quite easy to demonstrate.
So it's worthwhile.
And it is worthwhile, and we also often get in, work with our customers to show that business case.
If our viewers watching now are thinking, would like to interact more, engage more on this conversation, where can they get hold of OpenText? Or is it OpenText or Digiruption that they should be reaching out to?
I think OpenText. Digiruption is the event, that was the name of the event we had last week. So if you do search for Digiruption, you will find a lot of detail around that based on the social media posts and feeds that we've had. But www.opentext.com is our organization, and through that you will be able to access more information about our organization as well as get our contact details.
Thank you so much. It's quite insightful, but also very technical. So it always requires a further conversation. Julie Tregurtha, thank you so much for coming through to talk to us. Julie is with OpenText, the Vice President for Africa.